All right, so let's go back into our journey into the wonders and marvels of the real exchange rate. Let me check where I get loading your application. That's super, but I would like to start the presentation. Good. Okay, so where are we? We are so what have we learned this morning? We've learned about the bilateral nominal exchange rate. We've learned about the effective nominal exchange rate. Sometimes people call it the nominal effective exchange rate. I prefer it to be the other way around because it's a nominal exchange rate, but it's not the bilateral one. It's the effective one, but that's not a big issue. And now let me go into the hero of this presentation, which is the real exchange rate. Now, please note, the opposite of effective is not ineffective, and the opposite of real is not unreal. The opposite of effective is bilateral in this context, and the opposite of real is nominal. So the bilateral nominal exchange rate, ET, gives the price of a foreign currency in terms of the domestic currency. So the price of one money in terms of another money. The bilateral real exchange rate is more complicated because it gives you the price of a well-defined goods bundle in a foreign economy relative to its price in the domestic economy. It is computed by using information on the nominal exchange rate as well as on price levels in the two economies. Now, the symbol we're using is Q, right, for the real exchange rate. Q USD euro is the US dollar euro real exchange rate, and is computed as follows. You take the nominal exchange rate, euros per dollars, then you multiply by the US price level, which is dollar per goods bundles, and you divide by the European price level, which is euros per goods in euro. Now, when you look at these units, you see that the euro cancels out, the dollar cancels out, and the goods wanders into the numerator. And so by the end of the day, what you get is you get an exchange rate relationship in terms of goods bundles. Put differently, how many goods bundles in the euro area do you have to give up to buy one goods bundle in the United States? Or how many? Yeah, that's it. Okay, and the computation involves the nominal exchange rate, the US price level, and the European price level. Now, why is the real exchange rate so important? Well, because by the end of the day, that's what we care about, right? We do not care about how many green pieces of paper we get when we give away several blue pieces of paper, right? We are interested in how many goods units we have to give up when we go to another country and we want to get one goods unit. So, let me give you a steamy example, and that's something I designed for this course. Now, this is a bowl of, I've been told that this is not, Europeans pronounce this pho, but it's not, and Vietnamese pronounce it phao. Phao? Phao?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a bowl of phao. Now, suppose you are planning to go to Germany. And well, let me give you kind of a very specific example for the real exchange rate. Suppose that the goods bundle consists of only one good, a large bowl of phao soup. Okay? Now suppose you're planning to go to Germany, and just on the evening before you want to go to Germany, you want to have a bowl of soup in Ho Chi Minh City. Now, I searched the internet and I found out that depending on where you take it, 65,000 Vietnamese dong is the price of a bowl of phao soup. Is that reasonable? Is it too pricey? Is it low, the lower end, the upper end?
I think it's in mid-range.
Okay, so 65,000. So suppose you do not go into a super fancy place, you do not go into a super simple place, so that's where you now. What was the nominal exchange rate on March 8, 2025? Well, you had to pay, so the Euro Vietnamese dong nominal exchange rate on March 8, 2025 was 27,670 Vietnamese dong per euro. Okay. Now, what information do you need as what? Two, you need to know what does a bowl of pho soup cost in Germany. And I picked, there's a Vietnamese restaurant in Mainz, which is called, oops, where is it? It's the restaurant Hoa Mai, right? That has a meaning.
It's the name of a flower.
Okay, good. Okay, if you go to Hoa Mai in Mainz, you have to pay 7.90 euros for a bowl of soup. You can check on the internet. So how do you compute the pho-based real exchange rate? Well, you take the nominal exchange rate, you multiply by the foreign price level, which is, from your perspective, the German price level, and you divide by the Vietnamese price level. And what you get, so you multiply 27,670 by 7.90, and you divide by 65,000, and you get 3.36. What does that mean? Well, it means that you have to give up 3.4 pho soups in Vietnam to get one pho soup in Mainz. That's the real exchange rate, right? This is goods against goods. So on the night before you, this is why, from your perspective, Germany is an expensive country. And what do people mean when they say another country is expensive? They mean the real exchange rate. Although most of the people saying that do not know the expression, right? They don't know what a real exchange rate is, but they're talking about the real exchange rate. And the real exchange rate has three components. The first is the domestic price level. The second is the nominal exchange rate. The third one is the foreign price level, right? And so this number may be so large either because the German pho soup is so expensive, or because you have to give so many Vietnamese dong for 1 euro, or because the Vietnamese pho soup is so inexpensive. By the end of the day, what the real exchange rate says, if it's just about one good, is how many goods bundles, how many goods do you have to give up here to get one good abroad, right? And so I designed that for you. To enjoy one bowl of pho soup in Mainz in March 2025, you had to give up more than 3 bowls in Ho Chi Minh City. Now, to give you some comfort, if you think Germany is an expensive country, Germans think that, for example, Switzerland is an expensive country. So let me do something that so here's an example that I usually give my students in Mainz. It's not as up to date, but just to give you the German perspective, right? Give you some teaching Mainz, and I'm currently preparing the summer semester in Mainz. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Let me try again. I'm always terribly afraid of these touchpads because I don't want to delete anything. Right, this is, oops, no, I didn't do that. So I think, what am I gonna do? No, okay, no, this stuff is on, doesn't work. I would have to go to the hard drive or the server. Now, let me go back to the presentation. Sorry about this budget attempt to extend the thing. Okay, right. Now what I'm doing with my students in Mainz is I'm talking about latte macchiatos, right? Talking about latte macchiatos and how how many latte macchiatos do you have to give up in Germany if you want to buy one in Switzerland. And then I have the German price and have the Swiss price, and I have the Euro Swiss franc or the Swiss franc Euro exchange rate. And it turns out that as a German, if you want to travel to Switzerland and enjoy a latte macchiato, you have to give up 2 latte macchiatos in Germany, right? So Switzerland, from the German perspective, is an expensive country. Another country that's very expensive from a German perspective is Norway, right? So I didn't compute the latte macchiato-based real exchange rate, but it's probably. But importantly, it's about goods against goods, right? Now, what makes the real exchange rate more interesting, though, is that the real exchange rate does not refer to one good, it refers to entire goods bundles. Okay, that's something that will be with us for the next 80 minutes. So following our convention, an increase in Q is a real depreciation of the domestic currency, whereas a decrease in Q is a real appreciation. And the same holds for the real effective exchange rate. So you can compute nominal effective exchange rates, and you can compute real effective exchange rates. In our presentation, we're blurring. Note, in our presentation, we are blurring the difference between countries and currencies. Sometimes the difference is important. Why is that? Now, usually we say a country has a currency, but there is an example where this doesn't apply. Can you come up with an example where, different countries have a currency? The euro area. Now, the funny thing is, when you talk about the nominal exchange rate in of Germany vis-a-vis France, it's very simple. It's 1, because we have the same currency. Because the French euro, how many German euros do you pay for 1 French euro? 1. What about the real exchange rate? Now, the real exchange rate is not necessarily 1, because we have different price levels. So there's a within euro area real exchange rate. Now, coming back to this comment, I'm kind of sloppy in my terminology. So I say country and currency, and here we have, right, we have the euro, which is the German currency, and we have the German price of the euro and the Vietnamese price of the soup. That's fine, but sometimes there's not a one-to-one match between currency and country, as in the case of the European Monetary Union, right, where we have different countries sharing one currency. So you can actually compute a real exchange rate of Germany vis-a-vis France. The only thing that you have to do is you have to be aware that this is 1, right? The nominal exchange rate is 1, but we may have different price levels across countries. So usually the prices P used to compute real exchange rates are national consumer price indices. That's the standard thing. That's how you usually compute the CPI-based real exchange rate. And this will be our most prominent example. Now, what we've done on the previous slide, we computed a FAO price real exchange rate, because the price was the price of a single good. You can, of course, compute all kinds of real exchange rates. You can use one homogeneous good or a clearly defined basket of homogeneous goods. Or you can use a PPI-based real exchange rate, or you can a unit labor cost-based real exchange rate. So there's all kinds of real exchange rates depending on what type of prices you use. Now, what are the ingredients of the real exchange rate? Recall, the real exchange rate is given by nominal exchange rate times foreign price level divided by domestic price level. Now, note that the domestic and the foreign price level are bundles of individual goods prices. So this is the domestic price level, and it's an arithmetic mean of different individual prices. That's how the CPI is computed. Now, sometimes the CPI is actually a very complicated animal. It has different layers, some of which are computed as geometric means, some of which are computed as arithmetic means. But by the end of the day, let's keep out that complication. By the end of the day, you have a weighted average of prices here, and you have a weighted average price in the foreign country. Now, you may have NH prices in the domestic economy, and you may have NF prices in the foreign economy. And the weight of good I in the domestic goods bundle may differ from the weight of the same good in the foreign goods bundle. Right? So this is price of good I in domestic economy, actually in domestic currency units. And this is the weight of good I in foreign goods bundle, and this is the price of good I in the foreign economy. So for example, Germans may drink more beer than French, and the French may drink more wine than Germans. I don't know whether that's correct, but that's kind of a prejudice. Now, to make matters even more complicated, there may be goods in one country that do not exist in the other country. So have you ever heard about teff? Actually, it's pronounced teff. It's an Ethiopian grain, and it's what rice is to Asian countries, teff is for Ethiopia and Eastern Africa. So what's the weight of teff in your consumption bundle? 0. You don't even know it, right? What is the weight of whatever latte macchiatos in the Ethiopian consumption bundle? Probably close to 0, right? So we have vast differences in consumption, in the composition of consumption bundles, and we have stuff that exists in one country and that doesn't exist in another country. I mean, globalization probably results in a convergence of consumption habits, but still, I would say that the Vietnamese consumption basket looks very different from the German consumption basket. For example, Germans eat a lot of bread. You will notice, right? The German breakfast is a slice of bread and coffee. And I know that the Vietnamese breakfast is different. And I enjoy it, right? But that's just important to see. Now, store this in a safe place, right? This is important information because I'll come back to it. Now, let's now talk about prices of individual goods. And let's talk about the law of one price. Now, the law of one price is not a law that you find in any legal code, right? It's not that you go to the library and you pick out a book and then you find the law of one price, which says prices should be the same across countries. It is something that should apply if good I is traded without frictions. So if you can costlessly transport good I from one country to another, then, and if there's no limits, then the price of that good in domestic currency should be equal to the price in the foreign currency times the nominal exchange rate. So if translated into the same currency, there shouldn't be international price differences. Okay, that's the law of one price. And the law of one price has a very solid foundation, namely that it's based on the idea of goods arbitrage. Because suppose that PIH is cheaper than in the foreign country. What would people do? If you can costlessly they can costlessly and transport limitless amounts across borders. What would happen if in the home country the good was cheaper than in the foreign country?
You bring the good from the foreign country back home and sell it.
It's the other way around, because in the home country it's cheaper. Exactly. So what would that do? You buy it where it's cheap and you sell it where it's expensive. What would that do to prices at home? Because people buy that, right? And what would that do to prices abroad?
Slow down.
What did you say?
Slow down.
They would go down. So if price in the home country, let me illustrate that graphically. Suppose that PITH, this is the same good, right? Think this is mangoes, right? And this is the price of a mango, say, in Thailand, right? You don't have a border with Thailand, do you? Or in the very south? You have a border with Cambodia, and then there's Thailand. I'm not very good at Vietnamese geography. Do we have a direct border with Thailand? No. Okay, so you have to go through Cambodia. Yeah. Okay. Now suppose, right, you jump from Thailand to Cambodia, and that doesn't cost you anything, and you can take as many mangoes with you, and you jump over. Okay, now suppose that there's a difference, right? This is the price in Thai baht. This is the Thai baht Vietnamese dong exchange rate, so the number of Vietnamese dong that you have to give for one Thai baht. So that would be VND. This would be BND THB, and this would be in THB. So suppose that you have that situation. Now, what would happen is goods arbitrage, if that goods arbitrage was costless, would result in this going down and this going up. There would be huge demand for Vietnamese mangoes because people would buy them and sell them in Thailand. So demand for mangoes would increase in Vietnam, pushing up the price. Supply in Thailand would increase, pushing down the price, and eventually this equation would hold. That's the logic, the law of one price. As I said, it's not a law that you don't find in any legal text. It's just something that follows when we assume that trade is frictionless. There are no costs of trade, there are no administrative impediments, so you can actually buy limitless numbers and costlessly transport them to the other country. Now, this is the law of one price. Now, the law of one price is a micro concept. Now we move from a micro concept to a macro concept, and we do that by invoking two assumptions. Namely, if we assume that the law of one price applies to all goods, and we assume that the domestic and the foreign goods bundle have the same structure, exactly the same. If that is the case, then we get some kind of macro version of the law of one price. And I want to show you how that is done because it's not trivial. And it's often overlooked. So, this is the domestic price level, which is the arithmetic mean I running from 1 to IH, phi IH, PITH. Okay? Now, this is equal to I equals 1 to NF phi IF PITH. And the assumption that goes in here is identical goods bundles. Okay, so we have replaced NH by NF and replaced phi IH by phi IF, which are the same. If we assume that the weights are the same and the set of goods are the same, then this is fine. And the next thing is, we can write this as I equals 1 to INF phi IF ET PITF if the assumption holds that law of one price holds for all goods. Right? And so we have replaced, we've invoked the law of one price. Now, this is of course equal to ET I equals from 1 NF phi IF PITF, and this is equal to ET PTH F. So, bottom line of the whole thing is PTH equals ET PTF, or 1 equals ET PTF over PTH, and that says, and this is just the real exchange rate. Now, I'm making a lot of fuss about that because this is the first I mean, there's so many misunderstandings about the real exchange rate. And one of the misunderstandings, a very frequent misunderstanding that you find in a lot of undergrad macro textbooks is, well, we got the law of one price, and then we blow it up, a law of one price, which is a micro concept, and then we blow it up and we get a macro concept, which is this. Now, please note that the law of one price is not sufficient. What we need is we need the law of one price and we need the assumption that goods bundles have the same structure. Otherwise, the law of one price is not enough. That's important because later on we will see that if goods bundles differ across countries, that may give rise to real exchange rate fluctuations, right? So we'll come back to that. Now, what's the difference between this and the law of one price? Now, this refers to goods bundles. The law of one price refers to individual goods. Now, once we have that, we can translate this into this, and this gives, this is basically the real exchange rate, and that's absolute, the theory of absolute purchasing power parity. So the theory of absolute purchasing power parity says that the real exchange rate should be equal to 1. Or put differently, goods bundles should cost the same across countries if translated into the same currency. Now, here we have a first theory of the real exchange rate, and it's a very strong theory and a very demanding